Richmond, Virginia, the Shinara Chronicles, and Amelia Earhart are all on this day. Welcome back to On This Day. Today's date is January 5th, 2022. It is the 5th day of the year, in case January 5th didn't tip you off to that. There are 360 days left in the year. First Wednesday in the second week, and the 16th day of winter. If today's your birthday, your birthstone is a garnet. Today is National Screenwriters Day. On January 5th, when the credits roll on your favorite show or movie, admire the writers on National Screenwriter Day. They always have the lamest things for that. Anyway, this date celebrates screenwriters. In case you don't know, people like Steven Spielberg, Martin Scorsese, Francis Ford Coppola, they don't normally write their scripts. I could be wrong, but I don't think any of them ever wrote their scripts. I know people like Quentin Tarantino, they play a big part in script writing, but most of them don't. They use a screenwriter who takes a book or a story and turns it into dialogue for a movie. It's quite a skill, actually. So today, celebrate them. Watch a movie and actually watch the credits. All right, let's see what else happened. On January 5th, 1781, the American Revolutionary War. Richmond, Virginia is burned to the ground by British naval forces led by Benedict Arnold. 1895, the Dreyfus Affair. Most historians consider this scandal to be one of the worst examples of a miscarriage of military justice. Alfred Dreyfus was a 35-year-old Jewish French artillery officer in the French military. He was wrongfully accused, convicted, and imprisoned for being a spy, basically. He was accused of passing sensitive documents to the German embassy in Paris. The thing was, he didn't do any of it, and they sent him to Devil's Island, which is off French Guiana in South America. He was sentenced to life imprisonment on Devil's Island, which could have been a pretty short time because this island at the time had a 75% mortality rate, meaning your life sentence could literally last a couple years. So when they found out that they had a major in the French military that was actually the one giving the secrets to Germany, they didn't want to be embarrassed because they had already convicted Dreyfus and he's doing time on the island. So instead, they basically found the major not guilty, even though they knew he was guilty, but did force him to resign, and they tried to leave Dreyfus there. He probably would have stayed there, but a French novelist wrote an article when he found out about it, accusing the French high command of imprisoning Dreyfus for the crime of being a convenient scapegoat. Well, this sort of split the country into two different sides. One thing leads to another, and the guy who wrote the article gets arrested, and this kind of really gets the ball in motion, and the public turned against pretty much the French government. Finally, the French Supreme Court decided that Dreyfus was innocent and illegally imprisoned. They let him go. Upon returning to France, he was promptly arrested for espionage. Remember, he had already been convicted and released of espionage, but apparently they tried to say he was still doing it. This time, when they went to court against Dreyfus, they were prepared. Instead of having no evidence, they had forged evidence. And surprise, surprise, he was found guilty. His second conviction led to international outrage. Everyone was condemning the French and the French military, saying that their justice system was just a sham, and they were in a really bad spot. So the French president wanted to put an end to all this, so he pardoned Dreyfus in 1899. There was one condition though, he had to admit his guilt. Dreyfus, being away from his family for so many years already, he didn't want to go back to Devil's Island, so he just signed the paper and moved on with his life. It didn't end there. In 1905, a report was done called the Dreyfus Affair, and it laid out all the shady stuff that the French government had done, including releasing the real spy and the forging of the evidence. More international outrage came up, and the president of France just pardoned him. Said they were sorry, reinstated him in the military, and that was that. Well, Dreyfus left the military because, he didn't like the way he was being treated. Imagine that. When World War I started, he went back in the military to fight for his country. The country that had been screwing him for almost 15 years? Yeah, he fought for him. Alfred Dreyfus went on to live a nice life and died at the age of 75 in 1935, 29 years after he was exonerated. 1944, the Daily Mail becomes the first major London newspaper to be published on both sides of the Atlantic. 1949, in his State of the Union address, United States President Harry S. Truman unveils his Fair Deal program. 1991, Somali Civil War. The the United States Embassy to Somalia in Mogadishu is evacuated by helicopter airlift days after the outbreak of violence in Mogadishu. It was pretty bad then. 2005, the dwarf planet Eris is discovered by the Palomar Observatory-based astronomers, later motivating the International Astronomical Union to define the term planet for the first time. Premiered on January 5th, 2016, the Shinara Chronicles. So this was an MTV show that, I mean, it was okay, but I think they focused a little too much on good-looking actors instead of good actors. The show is based on the Shannara series of novels by Terry Brooks. Great series of books. I think I've read all of them. I think it's only a trilogy, unless they added more later on, but I read the trilogy back in the 90s. Great series. Born on January 5th, 1959, Clancy Brown. If that name doesn't sound familiar to you, he played the jerk a-hole guard in The Shawshank Redemption. His first movie was in one of Sean Penn's early movies called Bad Boys. It was the film Sean Penn filmed right after Fast Times at Ridgemont High. He played the bully at a juvenile detention center. And eventually, Sean Penn buys 3 or 4 sodas from the machine there in the can. He puts them in a pillowcase and goes and beats the crap out of the guy with them. And he becomes the tough guy at the juvenile detention center. Great movie. But yeah, if you ever get a chance and you've never seen Shawshank Redemption, it is probably one of the best movies you will ever see. And he plays a great role in there. Clancy Brown is also the voice of Mr. Krabs in the children's cartoon Spongebob SquarePants. Died on January 5th, 1939, Amelia Earhart. At least that's when they think she died. They never found out what happened to her, but she went missing on July 2nd, 1937, and 18 months later, they decided she was dead, and so she was declared dead on January 5th, 1939. That story has always interested me. I don't know why. I remember seeing a documentary when I was a kid with Leonard Nimoy, and he talked about Bigfoot and all these different things, and it was a movie, and they broke down all these weird occurrences, and one of them was Amelia Earhart. And I remember that would just totally interest me as a kid. Very interesting story. I thought for the longest time that, they'll never find out, but now, with all the DNA, if they do find some bones on some island someplace and test them, because there's still people out looking for her remains or the plane or whatever, if they ever find the bones and do the testing, they could figure out what happened to her. There is another Amelia Earhart, though. She used to be the news reporter from the helicopter in Denver, Colorado for an NBC affiliate. I don't think she does that anymore. I think she's just a pilot now, which is very interesting. Amelia Earhart, pilot, disappears. Amelia Earhart, pilot today. All right, that's today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you got some information out of it. Now go out, have a productive day, and be nice to each other.